Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this beautiful, sunny Monday morning. I bring up sunny. I emphasize that for a specific reason. Robin, when I was a kid, I had a toy car. And it had a solar cell on the top of it. I think it was a solar switch is what it was. I think that's what it was called.
That's cool.
And I'm trying to remember exactly if I had to play with it in the dark or not. I can't remember now, but you shined a flashlight on that solar cell and the car would move. And so I guess if you brought it outside, it would always move because of the sunlight. Now, if I'm talking about my childhood, those who don't know me, and our next guest does not know me, then I'm talking about in the 1960s. So that's how long ago this was. Neville Williams is on the phone, and we, as people, have come a long way with solar power and solar cells since then. If I look at Google Maps right now of the house I grew up in New York, the house next door to the house I grew up in is covered with solar cells.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what the story is there, but people are using solar energy. Every once in a while you hear about a person, maybe it's a celebrity or something, who has completely removed themselves from the power grid, and they've done that with solar cells and maybe some wind as well. Neville Williams is our guest. He's written a really eye-opening book. It's called Sun Power: How Energy from the Sun is Changing Lives Around the World, Empowering America and Saving the Planet. Let me just real quickly go through his credentials. He is a Vietnam War correspondent as well as a solar power pioneer. How about that for a diverse set of backgrounds? He's an adventurer, a journalist, a consultant to the U.S. Department of Energy, a contributor to the New York Times Magazine, The New Republic, The Nation, Outside, Nature. He worked as the National Media Director for Greenpeace, and it just goes on and on and on. I love this idea. Let's say good morning to Neville Williams. Good morning, Neville. I apologize. Both of us have a cold right now, by the way.
Oh, there you are. I only heard you in a barrel.
Oh, really?
There you are. Yeah.
Really?
You're there now.
Oh my goodness! Well, I hope you heard the intro.
Very just vaguely, but I did. Thank you.
Yeah, man, where are you?
Extravagant intro, more than necessary, but thank you.
Neville, where are you right now?
Pardon?
Where are you?
Oh, I'm in Naples, Florida.
Oh, you're not too far.
I moved here three years ago. So I'm a Floridian. Moved here 3 years ago from Washington, D.C. when I sold my interest in my last solar company, Standard Solar.
So here's a question we often get about solar power: is would it work in like Florida is known for sunshine, Southern California, Arizona, known for sunshine. Would those be the only places that solar power could work, or could it work in Canada or something?
Oh no! Actually, the largest solar market in the world. By the way, you're a little distorted coming at me here, but maybe it's just too loud on your end. But anyway, I can make you out. No, the largest solar market in the world for the last 10 years has been Germany. That's not a sunny place. And there's some huge solar programs in Ontario, Canada, so it has nothing to do with that. I mean, you size your panels, your system to meet the sunshine and the amount of power you want to produce. So, no, in Florida, of course, is where you are, has more sun than it knows what to do with. Unfortunately, solar hasn't been promoted very well here. There's a number of barriers in this state we can talk about.
What are the barriers? And is the sound any better? Did I fix
that? Yeah.
That is better? Okay.
Yeah. Well, this is the only state I know of that has a property tax on commercial solar. They just waived the residential property tax. They hadn't really enforced it for years. A number of people do put systems on their house, and they can tie them to the grid, and it's called net metering, and they get the system runs in the daytime, puts power into the grid, and they take it out at night, and they pay the difference. Usually they still have to owe more unless they have a really big system.
Right.
But commercially, which is a huge business nationwide, and my company, Standard Solar, which I founded after working around the world for many years, I realized it's time to do this in America. A lot of our, besides residential, a lot of that business is, for that up in Maryland and the East Coast, is small commercial. And it's booming because for two reasons. There's no property tax on it. And secondly, you're allowed to do third-party financing of these. So, the largest user of solar in America is Walmart. Can you believe that?
Really?
But there's not a single Walmart store in America, in Florida, that has solar on it because they can't do it with third party, and they're not allowed to produce their own power beyond what they can use. So, one of the second largest is Kohl's department store. There's none in Florida. So, the Republican legislature keeps killing any initiatives that would put solar on the same level. Well, they don't like solar.
But why? Why would they kill it? Why would they stop something that seems like...
You would have to ask them. You'd have to ask Mr. Workman in Tallahassee why he just refused to even hear the bill before them about how to finally waive, like all other states have done, waive property taxes on commercial solar. So as long as that exists, there could never be commercial solar in the state, despite all the other issues. The other reason is that FPL, which is a good utility, and they've done a lot of solar themselves, believe it or not. They've done maybe 125 megawatts of different kind of solar installations around the state, large solar farms. And they're a clean utility, and our electric rates are very affordable in Florida, at least in the FPL area. Now, you're a different case there, but they lobby the legislature to do what they want, and they don't want independent people selling power, and they're empowered by the state constitution to have a monopoly. So that means independent power producers, like in 40 other states, can't do it in Florida. However, there's other places. There's Orlando. There's your city, which is the first in the country to invoke after the German model, the feed-in tariff, and that was pretty progressive. I'm sure it cost money, and it probably had some stumbling blocks, but it really was a big move. And so the cities with municipal utilities, as well as cooperatives, can do what they want, but there's still a tax problem in Florida. So unless that's waived, which Republicans refuse to not even vote on the bill, they won't even hear it.
Well, that doesn't even make sense to me. I mean,
these people don't make sense. You'd have to call them up and ask them.
Well, I don't want to do the political.
No sense to me.
Okay, well, hold on, Neville. I don't want to get into this stupid political junk just because someone's Republican, but I want to know some common sense stuff. What is the common? I mean, if I wanted to convince them to change their mind, give me some ammunition. What can I say?
Well, frankly, it's pure ignorance. They don't know anything. They're in Tallahassee, which is sort of like
but help me erase their ignorance. They don't know anything
about it. They know nothing about the solar industry, and they won't listen to the lobbyists that work for the solar industry.
So okay, well, if I was let me try to be them, and then have you answer the questions. Okay. Let's say, why would I want solar? What's in it for?
Well, first, it would produce probably 10,000 jobs in the state in the first year. Has 150,000 people working in just the solar electric business. I'm not talking wind and other green power around the country. And there's 2,500 installers. There's only a handful in Florida, and there's some big commercial companies, and there's huge companies like Google and big investors, Warren Buffett and everybody. They've put hundreds of millions of dollars into solar financing, both for residential and small commercial. All that money would pile into Florida. But these guys don't know that, and there's no convincing.
How can they not know it, though?
They just want to remain ignorant. Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask them. I don't know why they do.
Neville, please don't have an attitude. I'm really trying. I'm really trying to get some information.
I know, but I don't have any. The guy named Workman said, "Well, we think we've subsidized solar enough in this state." But he couldn't point to a single thing in 20, 30 years that has subsidized solar in this state.
All right. Well, you have right now an audience.
That's all I know. That's all what I read in the paper.
You have a smart audience, Neville, right now. They're listening to you, and they are open-minded, and they do write letters to legislators. And so the big question they would have is, if solar is good, how can I convince my legislator to do something so that we have? I mean, just the one thing you said about Walmart being able to provide electricity for themselves, but not because of legal reasons. That's crazy.
Well, two reasons here. They're not allowed to have third-party financing, and there's the property tax. So if they put a big system on their roofs of their big stores, they could be taxed a couple $100,000 a year. That pretty well destroys the economics of it, right? So it's just crazy, and I don't know this. I know this state doesn't have an income tax, and it very much wants property taxes and needs taxes. It's just that's not an item that is really a big moneymaker. No, I couldn't understand why it didn't go out of committee, because I think had it gotten out of committee, it would have actually passed. But this particular lawmaker refused to.
Well, maybe the book Maybe your book will help educate us a little bit.
Maybe I should send him the book. Yeah. No,
Maybe you should.
There's a group in Florida called Florida Alliance for Renewable Energy that's working hard to lobby, and there's a lot of successful entrepreneurs doing work in the independent areas in Florida. So it will come, but compared to what's happening in other states, it's just way behind. So that's just the story in Florida. But we don't have to talk about.
But
Florida.
your book is not a Florida book. Your book is.
No. I happen to live here, but
international.
I basically exactly. Well, I was lucky to get a major publisher out of New York, Macmillan, and a division of them. And I'd worked for about 30 years in this business. I was originally a journalist, which you mentioned being a correspondent in Vietnam. I guess that sort of dates me. Been around a long time, but having been a writer once, I said, well, gee, now I know this story. I'm kind of out of the business. I do some projects in New Mexico, but for the most part, I'm out. I worked in 11 developing countries when solar was more expensive than it is now. And we brought solar to people who needed it. That is, they had no other source of electricity.
Right.
They had no electricity, it's solar electricity, and we made it affordable and figured out ways to finance that. And now it's a booming business. Many companies and organizations in these countries are doing that, and that was wonderful. And but I came back here in 2005 and said, well, it's time to do it here, and the prices had started to drop. And the real amazing thing about the story of solar, which probably most people don't know, I wrote the book because, A, I knew about the business, I can write, and I figured there's a lot of information people don't know. I think it's a writer's job to educate. The big story is that since 2008, solar prices have dropped 75%. I never saw this coming, and it's all because of China. For better or worse, your iPhones are made in China, your televisions are made in China. So, hey, they're making our solar panels, and they're making them very well. And your iPhone works, right? Well, these solar panels work, and they're cheaper than I never could imagine it could get. So, it's really a buyer's market at this point.
But that's the initial cost is for the consumer, say like the private homeowner, to purchase solar panels and the equipment that'll make their house run more efficiently. But then after that initial cost, they're not billed by the utility companies or anything because they have nothing to do with it.
Well, it's not quite that simple. What changed the business about 14 years ago was the implementation in most states, including Florida, called net metering, which means you're allowed to put residential power into the grid as long as you finance the system yourself, and you don't put in more. You don't put in more than you take out, because they're not going to buy the power from you, but they'll deduct the amount of power you make from the amount they're selling to you. Because at night you need the grid, you need FPL or whatever utility you have. You need that at night. And so the amount of power you make in the daytime, doesn't really. And plus, here in Florida, you use air conditioning, which uses more power. So you might make with a $15,000 to $25,000 system on your house, which a good size roof can handle. You might produce 40 to 50% of your power. So that you're still always going to be connected to the grid. But once you've paid that off, and with leasing, and also the other things not allowed against the law in Florida is solar leasing. This is Google and SunPower together just put $250 million into a solar leasing program. That's there's probably $2 billion around the country of funds available for leasing, which means the homeowner pays nothing. They just pay a monthly lease. They still pay their utility bill, but their utility bill is half what it was, and the lease is probably the other half, and so you break even. Because solar now, here's the other part of the story. This is, I think, good news. Solar is now the cheapest form of energy you can buy.
The cheapest, and I would imagine it's the cleanest. Am I right?
Oh, of course. Well, totally clean. Yeah, I mean, you might have a year of manufacturing power required to make a panel, but that pays itself off in 1 year, and then you've got 25. These are almost all solar panels are guaranteed 25 years.
So let's look at something for a second here. If you say our legislators don't want it, and one of the big selling points is it's clean, and another big one is that it's cheap, then you need to tell them, look, you can't be telling us that you got to pay us money to clean up our beaches when there's an oil problem, but at the same time not allow us to have clean energy.
Yeah.
So if it's all about money, though, couldn't the electric company like Florida Power and Lighting, couldn't they have some solar cells that they sell us the power that they made with solar cells?
Well, they do in central systems. You see, there's household solar, there's which residential, which happens in this state, but not in a big number because of no leasing, and there is no property tax on that. Then there's commercial solar, which is not happening because of the property tax and the inability to finance it by the third party. And then there's solar farms, and some independent ones in your area are being considered, really big ones, which would sell power to the utilities. And there's one friend of mine built a 10-megawatt plant in Orlando. He sells that power to the Orlando utility, which is independent. It's not governed by the same state rules that govern Florida Power and Light. Now, I would agree with you, and this is a mystery to me. I think the next big play in solar is, and remember, we have 550 utilities in this country in 50 states, 50 public utility commissions, and so it's there's no one size fits all. But I think the utilities should get into the business. But they're operating on the old-fashioned centralized power model. And where Florida is FPL is a pretty clean utility, as are most of them in Florida, well, unless you have a lot of coal-fired plants, which people don't like. The most utilities around the country are burning fossil fuels and coal. In the coal lobby and the fossil fuel lobby, i.e. the Koch brothers, are now trying to put a national tax on solar. Can you believe that? And they've lobbied 50 legislatures to overturn all their pro-solar policies.
But again, I know you're probably going to say, I don't know. But why? What is in it for them? I mean, what do they care? I mean, if I want to have my house...
them. I think they're bad people. No, look, they were a New York Times editorial yesterday was talking about the Republicans finally found a tax they like. Let's tax solar. This is the New York Times editorial about the Koch brothers trying to kill solar in 50 states, and they were successful in Oklahoma. The governor signed one of their model legislative bills that they provided. Kansas is considering it, but in some states like Arizona, they're pushing back against this. They're saying, well, look, wait a minute. Solar is here to stay. The utilities are going to have to get used to it and deal with it. And if they were enlightened, they'd see this is the new model. And what we call this, and this is, I think, important for your listeners, is distributed generation, which is a weird, a better word is decentralized generation. In other words, power generating, clean power generation where you use it and where you need it. And that's coming. That's the future. And it's already happening in Germany, in some countries. And it's just, it kind of flies in the face of the old centralized model. So the two are going to have to come together in the future. But it's going to happen not because of, state legislatures or government policies or subsidies. And by the way, there's two more years to run on the 30% tax credit, which is available in Florida for residential. But it's the pricing, it's the cost is going to really make solar win out, because in the end, it's just going to be the cheapest thing to do.
And it seems like third world countries are really benefiting from solar because that's all they have over there. And the U.S. should look at them and say, hey, we should have this here.
Well, we should look at Germany, which, of course, Gainesville did. Gainesville Utility looked at Germany and said, we can try that here. They were the first one in the country. I wish I knew more about it. I don't know if it's still operating because, these are financial situations that have to be dealt with. But that was a pretty progressive idea, I think. So, it's all happening. I suppose Florida will come around one day just because of the economics. Here's some good economic news. The city of Austin, Texas, which has their own utility, Austin Energy, they're buying now, someone's building independently, financed independently, to sell them power, a 200-megawatt farm, solar farm, which will sell power to the wholesale price of 5 cents a kilowatt hour. They buy gas turbine-fired electricity at 7 cents, and their wind power, I think, is higher than that. So it's the cheapest energy. It's unbelievable, those prices.
The idea of having solar cells on a house, would that, just real quickly, I mean, I know we're mostly talking about the benefits of using solar power, but can you try, if it's possible, to educate me on how does that solar cell, how does a solar cell actually make electricity? Or is that over my head? How does that actually happen?
It's actually over my head, and I've been in it for nearly 30 years. It's magic. It's like television. We watch TV and people produce TV shows, but who knows how it works?
Oh, okay. Because my brother has a solar heated pool, and this is what I know, but this is what he did. He literally, because his pool is enclosed, so on the roof over his pool, he wove around like a snake. He took a black hose, and the water pumps through the black hose, and by the time it comes out the other end, it's hot.
Yeah.
Well, that's the solar hot water business, which has been around a long time, and it's a huge business water heating and pool heating in Florida is a big business, but solar electricity is
different thing.
And a homeowner can basically go to Google. They can look up, they can read my book, sunpowerbook.com, and look at that, but they can go to Google and ask for their town solar installer, and they'll come up with a list of people who serve their area. And these guys usually send someone out to the house, or can tell them how it would work, how much it would cost them, what size they want or need, was their roof appropriate to it, and so on. And it's commonly done. I mean, there's thousands of systems in Florida, but there's 450,000 households nationwide using with rooftop solar, just residential. That's a good number.
So
how it works is basically the sun is converted to the sun takes photons and releases them in this kind of cell. There's like 36 cells in a panel or a module, and that the electrons flow off into a wire. Unfortunately, they're direct current. They have to be converted to alternating current.
Uh-huh.
And that's what was invented about 14 years ago. Well, it was around, but they were expensive, these inverters. And they came out of Germany and Austria. Now they're made everywhere, and they're much cheaper and more efficient. But you have to convert the sun's power, direct current, made by the panel, into something the grid can absorb. And then these have to run two ways, sending power out and taking power in. So that technology really helps solar take off. That plus the cheaper panels from China. So it's not something you don't need to understand the technology. There are no batteries involved.
No, I know you don't need to, but I was just curious if we could take a little moment to try to understand. The book is called Sun Power. It is written by our guest Neville Williams. You really go into great detail as to how and when and all everything about solar power, really. The one thing I think that has obviously been a big point of this conversation has been the roadblocks. And that's always in the legislature, whether it's Tallahassee or Washington, D.C. or any other municipality governing body or something like that. I think the only way to ever change a politician's mind is to get the constituency to change their mind.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they have to elect different people. There was the previous governor had a lot of energy, a thing that most states have called a renewable portfolio standard that requires utilities to produce 10% of their power, 20% with green energy, either solar or wind. And most states have that, but that was thrown out by the new government when they passed their energy bill. So there's been attempts to do this, but it somehow gets blocked. And you ask a good question, why? Well, I wish I knew. Tallahassee's a long way for me to go and lobby it, but there are people who in the industry are working hard. And I used to lobby the Maryland legislature, but it was for a 45-minute drive, from Washington.
Yeah, but your book, you'll do it indirectly through the book.
Well, that's all I can do, frankly. There's a lot of good people out there doing woodwork. And but the book is aimed at a more general audience, and I would hope it changes a few minds and educates a few people. By the way, solar energy can be a very boring subject, but I try to make it interesting.
Yeah, but here's how I make it interesting. If I'm paying $300 a month for an electric bill, and now I invest some money in some solar cells on my house, and my electric bill is, I don't know what it would be, but it would drop. Or would it go to nothing? What does it go to?
Well, it could go to half that, because you're not going to put on a big enough system to, we use a lot of power in an American house, right? But this can all be calculated by any professional installer can tell you exactly what your your load is, how much power you use every month, and how much power you can afford to make for X dollars, and then you decide. And as I say, on average, is 40 to 60% you make, and the utility provides the remainder. And yes, the savings can be now shown, whereas 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, it wouldn't pencil out as well. You'd have to wait longer for the so-called payback. But now it'll pencil out and show you, especially if you lease the system, that you are going to save on your monthly bill. In California, people are saving immensely. And I know people who have like a $10 a month utility bill, but they had to spend enough on a big enough solar system. So, it all depends on how you want to spend your money. Do you want to give it to the utility, or do you want to make your house more valuable, and it's going to sit there for 25 years? And, those are economic decisions.
Neville, thank you so much for being on the air with us. It's an honor to have you on with us. I'm guessing some of the talk shows you've spoken to have been antagonistic because I think
not. No.
No, well, good.
This is the only time I've gotten a little political because we are in Florida. And I'm delighted to talk.
Okay. It felt like you were being
Florida and you're in a good city that's done good work. So I do think you're raising some questions. I don't mean to be negative. No, they haven't been actually. But this is delightful talking to you. I think you asked great questions, and hope it.
Thank you, Neville. Is there a website you can tell our listeners about?
Yeah, www.sunpowerbook.com.
There you go, sunpowerbook.com. Thank you.
Available in Barnes & Noble. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for what you're doing. It's a huge thing you're doing. Also, thank you for being on the radio show. But I think the bigger thank you is for what you're doing for all of us by educating us about solar power. Thank you so much. We'll take a little break. We've got to move forward, and we'll be right back. This is The Source, WOCA Ocala.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. A scene of devastation in Arkansas the morning after a series of deadly tornadoes in the town of Mayflower.
Some meteorologists are saying that this could have been an EF3 or higher, which means sustained winds of more than 135 miles an hour.
Fox's Casey Stigall, Danville Police Chief Rick Paget after seeing the damage.
It really hits home when you see people, searching for belongings and trying to find the little things that could be lost forever.
At least 16 killed in the storms. A vote in the Democratic-led Senate could come this week on a plan to boost the minimum wage.
It's unlikely the measure gets